there is that contrast really in everything that is purposeful in the world. There's the opposite counterpart. And maybe that's why most of us are obsessed with creating balance. Welcome to Spiritually Hungry. So I have a riddle.
A riddle.
Today, we're going to talk about a relationship we often take for granted and don't cultivate. Sometimes it feels like it's one-sided. It's one that we take for granted most of the time. They're always on the other side, waiting for us to reach out and call. But when we encounter challenges, it's the first call we make. Who am I referring to?
I'm confused.
Really?
Yes.
How can you be confused when you actually know the topic of what we're talking about today?
Oh, okay.
I'm referencing the Creator. To further clarify this topic, I want to share a parable. One day, the darkness said to the light, "I hear so much about you, so why can't I see all of you?" To which the light replied, "Because if you were to fully see me, you would no longer exist. And the same would be true if I were to see all of you." As a result, the two decided to remain separate but equal partners in games of shadow and light. And so the world of forms and shapes was born.
That's beautiful.
Much of life is like this parable. The interplay of opposites plays out all around us. Shadow and light, up and down, back and forth, and so on. We live between the control we crave and the chaos that life sometimes brings. Between the wish to direct our course and the wisdom to also allow it to direct us, but between the world of the senses and the unseen spiritual world. So there is that contrast really in everything that is purposeful in the world. There's the opposite counterpart. And maybe that's why most of us are obsessed with creating balance. That's a pursuit of mine, at least. So I don't know if I ever shared with you, when I was in kindergarten, we learned about light and darkness and shadows.
I don't think I've ever heard this story.
Did you ever have that experience in school?
I don't think so.
I don't think you did either. You were in Jerusalem in
kindergarten? I was
kindergarten?
in kindergarten, yes.
Anywho, the teacher took us outside in the morning when the sun was still low in the sky.
This is where, in Thibodaux?
New Orleans. We all located our shadows and took turns tracing them with chalk on the blacktop.
But you're tracing while you're moving? I mean, it sounds complicated. unless you're tracing somebody else.
Well, we took turns tracing.
Somebody else
Yeah.
or yourself?
Each other.
Yeah, that makes more
So now
sense.
you're going to pay attention. The first analogy, you didn't get it all
I was trying to figure
completely
out how
over your
you'd be
head.
tracing
Okay.
yourself.
Yeah. Then we went
If
back
you're
inside
moving.
the classroom and continued instruction. At lunchtime, we went outside again to check our shadows. We found that they had shrunk. We traced each other's shadows again, which were
On
just
the blacktop.
slivers of darkness around our feet at noon. And then just before dismissal at the end of the day, we went outside to check our shadows one last time. Of course, you know what we found? Maybe you don't, but our shadows had grown again, but this time in a different direction. Now I'm going to shift the metaphor a little bit. The Creator is not the sun. The Creator is our shadow, which is the idea we're going to talk about today. And Rav Brandwein, the great Kabbalist who was your father, Rav Berg's teacher, had shared this, I think, in a letter that he had written. He said that the light of the Creator is like our shadow. No matter what we do, our shadow mimics us. And no matter where the light is shining on our lives, the Creator is there. The form changes shape, and sometimes we have to turn around to see it, but the Creator's always there, following our lead, following our footsteps. So basically, where we go, the Creator follows.
Well,
If you're going,
well, anywhere. But I think, okay, so now I understand.
oh, so good,
So this is both a...
because you only speak like Kabbalah. I gave stories about kindergarten. I gave an example between a conversation between light and darkness.
Well, I apologize.
I'm glad you understand now.
Yes. So this idea is both fundamental, and I believe for many people, if not most people, even quote unquote religious people, even quote unquote spiritual people, I think this is a revolutionary idea. I think you'd ask a religious person, and even if you'd ask a spiritual person for the most part, does God change? Is God different to you than to me? I think most people would say, no, of course, God is God. He is all everything, and he or she, however you want to reference that for us, does not change. And its interactions with me are based on maybe a set of rules or whatever criteria is set forth from the beginning of time.
But it's a constant force.
Right.
And that way it's consistent.
Well, that's, I think, a view. What we're proposing, and not we, right, but for thousands of years, the spiritual teachers have said this really revolutionary idea, which is that the God that you interact with, and again, we don't like use the word God because that's a very fraught word, but the creative force that created this universe, that creates everything, that sustains everything, I interact with it in different ways than you. And that force that we can call the creator, you can call it God, you can call it the creative force of the universe, it does not act upon any one of us individually the same as with anybody else, but rather, and to quote King David in Psalms, the creator is my shadow, which means what happens to me from that creative force is an effect of my behavior. And dependent on how I behave, so the light of the creator will behave towards me. That's why your interactions with the light of the creator will be different, and my interactions, and every single person's interactions will be different.
By that you mean how much that light is revealed and or how much we're able to access?
All of the above, and how I receive from it, right? You'll see two people. One person seems to be receiving abundance and blessings, another person not. Both of them might or might not believe, whatever that word means, in God or in a creator, but their interactions, their receiving from that force is going to be very different. And the reason why that is because the creator only behaves with me as I behave in the world. Let me use an example. And this is a basic example, but I think it drives home to my mind, a revolutionary idea about this creative force. If I spend most of my time in actions of sharing towards other people, and I understand therefore that the light of the creator is my shadow, the light of the creator will necessarily behave towards me in an abundance of actions of sharing towards me, giving me more abundance, giving me more blessings. I can be a believer, whatever that means, or I can be a spiritual person, even whatever that means. But if I'm not behaving in a way of sharing, for example, I cannot expect the creator, or the light of the creator, or the creative force of the world to shower me with blessings, shower me with abundance.
But sometimes people who are not sharing are blessed with a lot of things they receive. So what I'm asking you is our ability to experience it and derive pleasure from it dependent on
also
our
true.
Relationship, right?
Also
because
true.
If not, that doesn't, there's all kinds of reasons why some people have and others don't.
Of course, it's
right?
but all that being true, the bottom line of this revolutionary idea, which is borne out in experience, is that how we behave in the world, how we behave towards others, is how the creative force behaves towards us. And it is just as a man or woman with their shadow, it is exact. So too, the light of the creator only interacts and behaves towards me as I behave towards others and behave in the world. Another example, which I think again helps drive home this idea, because again, for me, the inspiring thought is that once you understand this, it should hopefully change the way you behave. Let's talk about judgment. The Kabbalists teach that if I never judge somebody else, I will never be judged, even if I've done negative things. We know one of the most basic spiritual rules is that for every cause, there's an effect. Mm-hmm. If I go over and yell at somebody, I've created that negative energy. That negative energy over time, might be tomorrow, it might be next year, it might be 10 years from now, will have to come back into my life in a negative experience for me. Mm-hmm. It might be somebody yelling at me. It might be somebody doing something harmful to me. The negative energy that I create must come back to me. But there's a caveat. We call that judgment. Judgment is simply the effect of my action coming back into my life in a negative way. If I don't judge another person, then no judgment can come towards me. Meaning, if I see somebody doing something that others say, oh, look, terrible man, terrible woman, how dare they do that? If I take a different view, which is, it's not my place to judge, but honestly, we can all say the words, but that's actually my internal feeling. I don't judge that person. I can't judge that person. I am focused on myself, how I need to grow, how I need to change. If I never judge another person, no judgment, even if I was deserving of judgment, can never come back into my life, because the light of the Creator behaves towards me exactly and only in how I behave towards others.
And those are two unrelated experiences. So if you go and you slap somebody or whatever, and then later in the day you see a different interaction, you don't judge that, then they strike each other, basically, like two separate, completely unrelated experiences.
Exactly.
But then what about if a person needs to learn a lesson in that behavior? What if they have anger and they keep yelling at different people or hurting them for no apparent reason? You're saying as long as they hold no judgment at all, those
it's
things
not me.
never...
The Kabbalists have said this for thousands of years. And I would posit that if a person was really never judging another person,
it's just impossible.
They would not be behaving in negative ways either. Right? And so it's not a zero-sum game. It's not like you either completely unjudge or completely judge.
Okay, that's what
most of us are somewhere in the middle. But the idea is still a very powerful one. That is that the more I can restrict my judgment towards other people, the more even my negative actions will be limited in how they come back into my life. Again, all this just to say, what I would hope our listeners take from this teaching is that let me think about how I want my life to be, or how I want the Creator to behave towards me, and let me behave like that towards other people, which would mean that I am now going to be pushing myself to do actions of sharing, not so much because I want to be a good person or an altruistic person, somebody who does good for others. That's a beautiful thought. And if that's the way you want to live, fine. But also because I know that if I want to have blessings and abundance in my life, the question has to be, what am I doing like that in the world so that the creative force, the Creator, can then behave towards me? Non-judgment, actions of sharing, or there's a concept called, and the Kabbalists say, especially when we feel that there might be judgment around us. Let's say somebody does something negative towards me, right? So most people, their reaction is, okay, so I'm going to behave negatively in return towards them. There's a phrase in the Torah, in the Bible, it says, in the prophet, it says, "Ve'over al pesha," which means a person who, even when somebody else does something negative towards them, he or she forgives it, lets go of it, right? If I behave in that way, I don't want to say the word force, but I kind of force the creative force to be in that way towards me, so that, again, even if there are negative judgments or negative consequences that are meant to come into my life, they get stopped, they get blocked by the fact that my nature or my behavior is somebody who lets go of negative things done to me. A lot of the Creator says, so then we let go of negative things that are meant to come to you. Mm-hmm. All this, again, for me, if you really understand and internalize this concept, it really becomes a driving force of change in our life. The reason I'm not going to judge another person is because I don't want to be judged. The reason I want to do actions of sharing because I want actions of sharing towards me, not necessarily from that person, but from the Creator, from the universe.
I mean, it still is cause and effect, but not the way we understand it to be. It's that I'm going to create the effect that I want.
Exactly.
Right? So it's just flipping, giving a new definition to that, which is really kind of cool. My question, though, and my thought as you were just sharing is a person's ability to do this, right? That the Creator is their shadow in the way that we want to be, dependent on how we relate to the Creator, how we speak to the Creator, our relationship really with the Creator. For so many people, it's hard to be able to feel that energy every single day. Like if we look at prayer, for instance, right? What is prayer? For some, it's begging God for a certain outcome that we think we should have or that we know, or making deals. If you just give me this one thing, then, right? That's obviously not prayer. As I really understand it to be, is about connecting to your source so that you can transform your baser instincts, your ego nature, to become more like your essence, which is the Creator, right? So, but for those who have a hard time kind of tapping into that understanding or that force each and every day, then the Creator being their shadow is kind of removed from them in a way. Even though it still applies, it's not understood, I think.
I'm not sure. I think I have maybe a more simple view of it, which is, again, one of the things I think is so important about the true study of spirituality is that you come to understand that these are rules that govern me, whether I know them or whether I like them or not, right? So
you're saying if somebody knows it or not does not affect the experience of it. That's what I'm saying.
No, knows what? Not how deep their relationship is with the light of the Creator. That That's a separate and maybe, and I would say important spiritual process. But what we're talking about here is akin to the law of gravity. We know that if a person jumps off of, a 10-story building, gravity will pull them down, gravity will force them, and then unfortunately negative things will happen to them.
Not always.
Mostly. So if you understand, therefore, that when you act with judgment towards other people, there's only one thing that's going to happen from that. That judgment will come back to the individual. I know that when I act in ways of sharing to other people, that means that the creative force of the universe is going to necessarily bring blessings into my life. I know that if I behave negatively towards other people, the light of the creator must, in return, have negativity come back into my life, and so on and so forth. So I see it as a very basic new understanding of how I interact with the world. So it's not what my personal relationship is with the light of the creator, which I think is important and a different conversation. I think
you're trying to keep this short, I see.
No. I just think I think that I don't want to muddy the waters by tying it into other important concepts. I think this one idea, which is, again, which I think is revolutionary, I think for many people either is new or doesn't necessarily permeate their daily activities. This is a law of the universe. As I behave, the God is not, again, that's I think the misnomer people have about prayer, for example. I can behave however I want, but when I really, really need the creator, I'm going to beg him or her, that force, to help me. That's not the way it works. The way it works is as I behave consistently in my life, if I'm judgmental, if I'm caring, if I'm sharing, if I'm nasty, all those things, as I behave, so the light of the creator must behave with me. I don't want to use the word force, but I force the universe to behave towards me in the way that I behave. It's that black and white. And I think that again, there's a lot of other concepts that one can take from this, but at the most basic level is, as we go through life, the question needs to be, how do I want the world to behave towards me? People, nature, and so on. Well, the next most important question is, well, then how am I behaving towards others? I cannot expect to be living a judgmental life, or at least have too much judgment in my life and not expect that to come back. I cannot expect to be nasty towards, or too nasty too often towards people and not expect that to come into life because I'm a good person or spiritual, whatever sort of protections that a person thinks he or she might have. The light of the creator, the universe, behaves with us exactly as we behave towards the world. And what that, again, for me, I know that I think about this almost every single day, many times a day. And it definitely, it definitely drives how I live my life. Because the question is, how do you want the universe behaving towards you? Make sure you're pushing yourself in all those areas out into the world. Because as that ancient statement from Psalms, Hashem Silcha, the light of the creator is my shadow. God is not sort of, liking me or not liking me. This doesn't play favorites. It's just how I behave. So the light of the creator must behave towards me.
So it mirrors your actions.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, point taken.
So as we come towards the end of summer, I think for our listeners, right, I think if you really, and I hope we've done a good enough in explaining it. But
I just think it's heady, which is why I was trying to, I think for you and I, we talk about the creator, we think about the creator every day, all day, and we're giving ourselves that feedback, that loop. We understand that. So we're living that. I think for some who aren't yet clear about what that feels like every day or what the creator, it just, and I think, the creator's shadow is, but I think that when I said earlier that it's changing how we understand cause and effect, right?
Exactly. For me, that's why my view on this is that it's not
about the creator. I'm saying the verbiage,
but it's a natural law. View it that way. It's simply a natural law, and there's no way of getting around it. So you can think, especially if you're spiritual, religious, whatever those words are, that I can behave in whatever I want, but I'm going to pray to God, or I'm going to whatever.
Or I'm a good person. I'll give a charity, and then I'll erase what you're saying. It's literally like a force following you every day, seeing every action, every single thing you do. And you think no one's looking, but in fact, you're creating the things that are going to come after you or not based on your footsteps.
Exactly. And again, I think that if you really understand this and take this in, it begins to shape you every single day what you do, what you refrain from doing, especially in the times that you need something, desire something, go ahead and do it. And you'll see that it actually comes back to you.
And it reminds me of that movie Ghost. It was one of my favorite movies in like the 90s, or maybe it was the 80s, with Patrick Swayze
I think it's the 90s.
and Demi Moore. So there's certain scenes where like when somebody does something really negative, right? Like this force comes and it's all these shadows and like, but that's like the dark angels, right? But it's the same thing. We can imagine as we're walking, there's literally a shadow.
And more important, not just exactly. And the point is, I am creating what is coming back to me.
Which makes you super powerful. Make sure you use it wisely.
Absolutely. So we hope you enjoy the rest of your summer.
And scary too much.
No, it's not scary. I think it's inspiring.
Yes.
So enjoy the rest of your summer.
And stay spiritually hungry.